Quieres solo una cama y dama, dama, no, que es la constelación.
The large stone structure, the remains of David's palace? 2 Samuel 5:11. And Hiram, king of Tyre, sent messengers to David, and cedar trees and carpenters and masons, and they built David a house. Excavations in progress at this site since 2005 have revealed the remains of a large building known as the large stone structure. Finds uncovered in relation to the structure indicate that it was built in the early 10th century BCE during the reign of King David. The Royal Quarter. Jeremiah 30:18. The city shall be rebuilt on its mound, and the fortress in its proper place. The inhabitants of ancient Jerusalem once built their homes on this hillside. The earliest structure unearthed here was part of an enormous step-stone structure that supported King David's palace or the Canaanite fortress that preceded it. In the early First Temple period, stately homes and an official archive were built upon the step-stone structure. Remains of these buildings were uncovered in excavations 1978 to 85. The opulent character of the homes and the nature of the artifacts found within them indicate that they belonged to Jerusalem's elite, some of whom served as royal functionaries. The royal quarter went up in flames when the city was destroyed by the Babylonians 607 BCE. In the early Second Temple period, the returnees to Zion rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem in the upper part of the excavated area, leaving the ruins before you outside the city. Jeremiah 37:3. And Zedekiah the king sent Jehucal the son of Shelemiah and Zephaniah the son of Maaseiah the priest to the prophet Jeremiah, saying, Pray now unto the Lord our God for us. At this spot a bulla, an imprint of clay used to seal documents, was found. The bulla bears the name Jehucal, the son of Shelemiah, the son of Shobai, one of the royal officials of King Zedekiah, who ruled over Judah at the time of the destruction of the first temple. The bulla of another royal functionary, Gedaliah, son of Pashur, was found nearby. The burnt room and the house of Bulai. Destruction and ruin. 2 Kings 25:9. He burned the house of the Lord, the king's palace, and all the houses of Jerusalem. He burned down the house of every notable person. This residential quarter went up in flames with the rest of the city during the Babylonian destruction of 607 BCE. The floors of the houses were covered by a thick layer of ash. Beneath the heap of rubble in one room, Yigal Siloah uncovered Babylonian and Israelite arrowheads and remnants of a charred piece of wooden furniture bearing a palmet design. The wood was imported from Syria, attesting to the high status of the residents of these houses. At the lower end of the excavation site, archaeologists found remains of an archive known as the House of the Bulai. The fire consumed all the scrolls and documents, but hardened and preserved the Bulai, imprinted pieces of clay with which parchment or papyrus documents were sealed. Some of the bullae bear names known to us from the Bible, such as Gemariahu, son of Shaphan, who was a high-ranking official in the court of King Jehoiakim. That's from Jeremiah 36, 9-12. The stepped stone structure, the mystery of the foundation stones. 2 Samuel 5 verse 7, but David captured the stronghold of Zion, it is now the city of David. The impressive stepped stone structure uncovered here is part of an enormous support wall. Scholars are divided regarding the date of its construction. Some claim that it was erected at the end of the 13th century BCE, perhaps as part of the foundation of the Canaanite, Jebusite stronghold of Zion, conquered by David. Others suggest that it is David's palace. The house of Ahale. Here dwells Ahale in a four-roomed house. 1 Chronicles 15:1. He, David, had houses made for himself in the city of David. The name Ahale appears on potsherds found among the ruins of this house. The house of Ahale is a four-roomed house, a typical Israelite dwelling, consisting of three parallel spaces closed off by a fourth. The roof beams were supported by pillars, part of which can be seen here. It is reasonable to assume that this was a two-storey dwelling. To the right of the building is a stone toilet seat. Its presence adjacent to the house attests to the high standard of living of its residents. Nehemiah 2:7. Then I said to them, "You see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us build the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace." The Hasmonean Tower. This tower is part of the first wall, which surrounded the city of David and the western hill during the Second Temple period. The first wall, as Josephus Flavius called it, was built by the Hasmonean rulers at the end of the 2nd century BCE. It protected the city until it was destroyed by the Romans in 70 CE. It may be assumed that this tower was built along the wall constructed by Nehemiah, the son of Hakaliah, when he arrived from Persia in the mid-5th century BCE. Warren's Shaft is a vertical shaft next to the Gihon Spring, the main source of water of Bronze and Iron Age Jerusalem, discovered in 1867 by British engineer and archaeologist Sir Charles Warren, 1840 to 1927. Yeah. Great cities and fortified to the heavens. Deuteronomy 1:28. Before us lie the foundations of a large stone tower built by the Canaanite inhabitants of Jerusalem 3,800 years ago. The tower was built with huge stones and was designated to protect the Gihon spring that issues beneath it. The spring water flowed through a hewn channel at the base of the tower to a large fortified pool located nearby. In times of war, residents drew water from the pool by descending a path that was protected by two huge parallel walls. The remnants of the walls can be seen here. King David apparently stood opposite this fortress when he came to conquer the Jebusite city 3,000 years ago, as it says, "And spoke to David, saying, You shall not enter here unless you remove the blind and the lame," as if to say, David will not enter here. 2 Samuel 5 verse 6. The Siloam Tunnel, also known as Hezekiah's Tunnel, is a water channel that was carved beneath the city of David in ancient times. It dates from the reign of Hezekiah of Judea, late 8th and early 7th century BCE, and corresponds to the waterworks mentioned in 2 Kings 20:20. According to the Bible, King Hezekiah prepared Jerusalem for an impending siege by the Assyrians by blocking the source of the waters of the Upper Gihon and leading them straight down on the west to the city of David. Support for the dating to Hezekiah's period is derived from the biblical text that describes construction of a tunnel and to radiocarbon dates of organic matter contained in the original plastering. The tunnel leads from the Gihon spring to the pool of Siloam. Built under Hezekiah, it dates to a time when Jerusalem was preparing for an impending siege by the Assyrians led by Sennacherib. Since the Gihon spring was already protected by a massive tower and was included in the city's defensive wall system, Jerusalem seems to have been supplied with enough water in case of siege even without this tunnel. According to the director of the Meg Alim Institute, the tunnel can be interpreted as an additional aqueduct designed for keeping the entire outflow of the spring inside the walled area, which included the downstream pool of Siloam, with the specific purpose of withholding water from any besieging forces. Both the spring itself and the pool at the end of the tunnel would have been used by the inhabitants as water sources. Troops positioned outside the walls wouldn't have reached any of it, because even the outflow water released from the pool of Siloam would have fully disappeared. In contrast to that, the previous water system did release all the water not used by the city population. into the Kidron Valley to the east, where besieging troops could have taken advantage of it. The curving tunnel is 583 yards long, and by using the 12-inch altitude difference between its two ends, which corresponds to a 0.06% gradient, the engineers managed to convey the water from the spring to the pool. According to the Siloam inscription, the tunnel was excavated by two teams, one starting at each end of the tunnel and then meeting in the middle. The inscription is partly unreadable at present and may originally have conveyed more information than this. It is clear from the tunnel itself that several directional errors were made during its construction. Recent scholarship has discarded the idea that the tunnel may have been formed by substantially widening a pre-existing natural cask. How the Israelite engineers dealt with the difficult feat of making two teams digging from opposite ends meet far underground is still not fully understood, but some suggest that the two teams were directed from above by sound signals generated by hammering on the solid rock through which the tunnelers were digging. Second Chronicles chapter 32. When Hezekiah saw that Sennacherib had come and intended to wage war against Jerusalem, he decided, after consulting with his princes and his warriors, to stop up the waters of the springs outside the city. And they gave him their support. Many people were gathered together, and they stopped up all the springs and the stream that flowed through the land, saying, "Why should the king of Assyria come and find plenty of water?" Furthermore, with determination, he built the entire broken-down wall and raised towers on it, and outside he made another wall. He also repaired the mound of the city of David, and he made a large number of weapons and shields. He then appointed military chiefs over the people and assembled them at the public square of the city gate and encouraged them, saying, "Be courageous and strong. Do not be afraid or be terrified because of the king of Assyria and all the multitude with him, for there are more with us than they are with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is Jehovah our God to help us and to fight our battles." And the people were strengthened by the words of King Hezekiah of Judah. The lessons are that he primarily put his trust in his God. Secondly, he took practical steps to defend his city. Are we fully dependent on our God? And do we take every practical step we can in the face of adversity? The Pool of Siloam. Second Temple Splendor. 2 Kings 20:20. The other events of Hezekiah's reign and all his exploits, and how he made the pool and the conduit and brought the water into the city, are recorded in the annals of the kings of Judah. Remains from the pool that King Hezekiah built in the first temple period have yet to be found. However, in the summer of 2004, remains of a very large pool covering an area of 3 danams, or 3/4 of an acre, from the second temple period was revealed. Nearby archaeologists uncovered the remains of a stepped street, the path taken by pilgrims ascending from the pool to the Temple Mount. Beneath the paving stones of the street they found a drainage channel that apparently served as a hiding place for the last Jewish rebels against the Romans in the year 70 CE. The pool ceased to function after the destruction of Jerusalem, and over time filled with earth and disappeared from sight. Zechariah's tomb. This structure, entirely hewn from stone, was never used for burial as it has no interior space. It is the nefesh, or monument, for a burial complex that commemorated the name of the deceased. The monument dates to the end of the Second Temple period, 1st century BCE, and reveals a mixture of styles. Tombs of the sons of Hezekiah. A hewn burial cave dating back to the Hasmonean period, 2nd century BCE, with an inscription above the cave's opening listing those buried inside. This is the grave and the burial monument of priests of the sons of Hezekiah. In the Bible, the sons of Hezekiah are known as one of the 24 priestly families in Jerusalem, Nehemiah 10:21 and 1 Chronicles 24:15. The style of the hewn elements, and primarily the capitals on the pillars, is derived from Greek architecture. Sons of Hezekiah inscription. The 17th lot fell to Hezekiah, 1 Chronicles 24, 7-15. At the front of the burial cave, above the capitals on the pillars, there is a Hasmonean era inscription carved in stone. The inscription is written in square Hebrew script and demonstrate that those buried in the cave belong to a priestly family identified in from the Bible. The inscription was discovered by a French archaeologist in 1854. Absalom's Pillar. This magnificent stone monument, dating to the late Second Temple period. The lower section of the tombstone is quarried and the upper section is constructed. The name originates from the Bible, where it states that Absalom built a tombstone for himself while he was still alive, naming it Absalom's Pillar, 2 Samuel 18:18. However, there is no connection between the shrine cited in the Bible and this structure, which dates to 1,000 years after Absalom's time. The quarrying style combines a variety of architectural traditions characterizing Jewish art of the late Second Temple period. The current Church of All Nations was built between 1919 and 1924 and rests on the foundations of two earlier ones, that of a 4th century Byzantine basilica destroyed by an earthquake in 746 and of a small 12th century Crusader chapel abandoned in 1345.